When your child receives an autism diagnosis, sharing this information with extended family can feel overwhelming or daunting. As parents, you may be feeling a complex mixture of a lot of different emotions. Relief that you finally have answers, worry about the future, and concern about how people are going to respond to this. Drawing from 20 years of experience in diagnosing and working with children on the autism spectrum, I want to give you some steps and some things to consider when having these important conversations with your family. Before approaching family members, I would suggest taking time to digest this information and understand your own emotions first. By acknowledging and working through some of these initial reactions, you're going to be much more confident and much more able to take on these difficult conversations with family members. And it's going to set the tone of when you do have this conversation with other people. You're going to be much more confident, you're going to be much more engaged, and you're going to know your own feelings so you can navigate these conversations much better. Parents who acknowledge and work through their own initial emotions first are going to be able to have much more productive conversations with their family, and it's going to create an opportunity for more support from family members. In my experience, I've worked with a number of families to where after they get this diagnosis, they liken it to a grieving process, which if you think about it, it does make sense. The idea of your child having a neurotypical life is gone. They're the same kid though. They're the same boy, the same girl that you've been raising since birth, but now you can see them more accurately. And that can be hard at first. That's a lot to take in. So taking that time, allowing yourself to go through that process, because it is a process, is going to be much more impactful. And then when you're ready, that's when you engage your family members. So when you're finally ready to talk with your family, prepare with knowledge and compassion. Family members are going to have questions. Some of them are going to be really insightful. Some of them may come off a little hurtful or even very hurtful, even though well-intentioned. Being prepared ahead of time of these different questions is going to make you more ready to address them when they do pop up. Number one is gathering accessible information. So having information ready that's in simple terms and that avoids jargon is going to help. The Autism Science Foundation has a lot of family-friendly resources that explain neurological differences, and it avoids using any sort of stigmatizing language. So, and I'll make sure that I'll leave a link down in the description. Number two is to anticipate common misunderstandings. So there's a lot of very common misunderstandings out there on what autism is, what it's about, what it means, and what you may run into is that it's a deficit, or that they'll grow out of it, or the causes of autism. People have got a number of opinions on that, or what the spectrum means. And basically what the spectrum means is what level of support the individual needs. So being prepared for these different sort of questions is going to help you, along with having gentle corrections to these. So these misconceptions in your family members aren't going to take root. And number three is to bring specific examples to your family members. So think about your own child. They're going to have unique differences and unique needs that's going on with them. So being prepared with that and give those examples to your family members is going to be much more impactful. For instance, saying, when Alex gets overwhelmed by noise and sensory sensitivities, he covers his ears. And he's not doing that because he's being difficult. He's doing that because his brain works differently and it processes auditory information like that differently than ours. Another thing to do is to frame the conversation constructively. When you start this conversation, how you But again, how you frame it to others is going to be very impactful on how they're going to take this information in. When you frame this conversation for something the entire family can work on collaboratively, that's going to open up the space for people to be much more understanding. So one way to frame this would be, so we've learned some new things about Charlie. We've learned some more things about his strengths, his weaknesses, some of his challenges. The doctors have confirmed that he is autistic. And right now we're finding out some ways and learning some ways on how best to help him. And we would like for you to join us on this so that we can work together to find out more ways on to help him thrive. So what is this approach emphasizing? It's emphasizing that autism is a difference, not a deficit. It's going to be an ongoing learning journey for everyone involved, and it's an invitation to be a part of their support system. Another thing to consider is to keep in mind intergenerational differences in understanding of autism. So sometimes older generations are going to have a misconception on what autism is and how it functions, and how you address this is going to be different. With younger generations, like working with kids, such as your kids like cousins or nephews or extended family members like that, especially when they're really young, like 3, 4, 5, making these explanations really concrete for them and actionable is going to be much more impactful. So older folks in the family, like grandparents, may need more basic information on neurodiversity. So for them, explaining how understanding of these issues have evolved over time to where maybe back in their day, what would have been seen as a difficult behavior nowadays can be explained as a sensory processing disorder, and that we can understand it better and we can accommodate this better. Another thing to keep in mind is to set boundaries with compassion. Despite your best efforts, some family members are going to respond with unhelpful comments, and they may be very dismissive. So being prepared for this before it occurs is going to make you ready for these responses. And in doing this, you're going to establish some boundaries with them while also trying to maintain the relationship. So for instance, what this may look like is, I appreciate your concern, but for right now, we're going to follow the recommendations that the specialist gave us. What I would like for you to do is to learn some more information about autism in the materials that I provided you, and for you to follow our lead whenever interacting with Emma. And above all, remember that this is a journey. Having one conversation isn't going to change everyone's minds in an instant. This is going to be an ongoing discussion. And what it may be is that you're planting the seed and allowing time to go on for it to grow, for them to fully understand. A lot of the research has shown that it does take 6, sometimes to 18 months for a lot of this to sink in with various family members. By approaching these conversations with knowledge, emotional readiness, and compassion, you're building a much more understanding world for your child, one conversation at a time. If you liked this video, please hit like and subscribe. I also have other videos talking about teen, adolescent mental health issues, along with issues with teens and kids on the autism spectrum. And I'll put a link to a video that I think that you'll really enjoy right up here. All right, take care. Bye-bye.